Hey guys, how's it going? I made a video prior to this a couple years ago talking about this same topic. I'll be honest with you guys, I didn't know what the hell I was talking about when I made that video. I made that video a couple years ago with a friend of mine's 140 at the time that I was selling, and he brought it over here for me to sell. It was a 1972 140. He brought it over here for me to sell because I live on a main road. And I guess he figured that it would sell quicker sitting on the road, which it really didn't. It just sat here for almost a year. Recently, I'm sure you guys, if you've been watching my channel now for the past year, I recently acquired some 140s. I've had a 1971 140, which is sitting in the back. I've also had this 1970 and 1969 140 that I recently acquired not too long ago. At the time I made that video, I really didn't know a whole lot about the 140s. I was kind of shooting off of what I had seen, but over the time of owning these 140s and learning more about the 140s, I think now I could probably go on ahead and make a video and talk about them a little bit better. That video does still exist on my channel. I'm not sure if I'm going to end up taking it down or what I'm going to do with it. I'm probably just going to leave it up just because. But I'll probably make this the video on the 140s. So I guess let's go on ahead and get into it. In 1968, if you've been around my channel for a while, you already know this. And if you watched that series of videos I made, 1968, John Deere introduced the square fenders. Originally, they had the round fenders such as my 67 112. Sitting here all except for this. The 110 had an 8-horse Kohler like this tractor has, but in the 112s they had a 10-horse Tecumseh, which is what this engine should be, but I hate Tecumsehs. I'm done with Tecumsehs. They never work right, so there you go. I got rid of it. 1968, they introduced the square fender. I don't have a square fender in here right now. Yes, I do. John Deere introduced the square fender. The square fender is these tractors right here. This is a patio model of the square fender, but that's a square fender right there. They also, in the 68, introduced the 140, which is this tractor right here. The 140 was John Deere's first hydrostatic garden tractor. Fully hydraulic, hydraulic lift, hydraulic drive, you name it, it was hydraulic. It was basically the exact same thing as a 110 or a 112, all except for it ran off of a drive shaft. The engine the flywheel faced the back instead of out the side. And there was a couple other things that were different about them, but you could get H1 or H3. This right here is an H3. I do not have an H1 140. I would like to get an H1 140 one day. The H1 140 just had a lever right here. These two levers didn't exist. As you can see, it was just that one lever. Originally, they had a 12-horse Kohler K301 in 1968. In 1969, they switched over to the 14-horse Kohler, which is what the 140 had until 1974, which is when they discontinued the 140s, unfortunately. In 1968, they had the 3/4 inch front spindle, which you can see this 140 has, which is a 1970. They also had a different style bumper. The bumper was flat and it had little pieces that came off over top of these. And if I'm correct, these covers weren't there because the hydraulic ports were covered by that shroud. Sometime in 68, they did away with the little shroud pieces and it was just a flat bumper. As you can see, this has the newer style bumper, same with that one. 1969, well, other differences they had. In 1968, when they first started making them, they had a peerless differential with a Sunstrand 15 hydro pump. I do have actually a Sunstrand 15 hydro pump I can show you guys with a peerless rear end, that is in a 140 currently, an older, my 69 140. And I also have a model of the newer 140 transmission with the Dana rear end and the Sunstrand 15U. I can show you guys that here later. But H1 had ports on the left side of the tractor. On the right side, there were no hydraulic ports with one hydraulic lever, like I said. When they first introduced them in 68, they had I believe they had a clutch pedal on them, which is this right here. This pedal disengaged the engine from the transmission. The engine would run when the transmission would stop spinning. It would also bring this to the neutral position, as you guys can see, which is where it is now. The brake pedals did not exist. It did not have them in early 68. I believe later in 68 they introduced them, but again, I'm not sure. I think they introduced them in 69, actually, maybe 68. That one, I'm not too sure. Tire size in 68 on the rear end was 23 850 12s. On the front, it was the same tires they had until the end of production, 16 658s. What else was different? I think that pretty much covered everything that was different about the earlier 140s, the 68 140s. In 1969, John Deere upgraded the 140 a little bit, as you can see right here. That is the bumper they went with in 1969. They also introduced the 14-horse Kohler in 1969. This does not have an engine, so just pretend there's an engine sitting there. They introduced the 14-horse Kohler, and it was also a solid-state unit. The unit hung off the side of the engine. Instead of seeing a coil, you would see a little thing right here. They had a wire that came out of the top of it that went up to the spark plug. This doesn't have one, but it mounted right there. If you had a solid-state Kohler, I'm sure if you've been dealing with these Kohlers for a while, you've seen them. And 1969 was basically the exact same as 1968, like I said, all except for the engine was upgraded, as well as they also introduced the dual brakes. This brake right here would stop the right tire. This brake right here would stop the left tire. And if you wanted to steer hard right, push the right pedal and turn the steering wheel right. If you want a hard left, turn the steering wheel left and then push the left brake pedal. Throttle, choke. Every year, as far as I know, had a cigarette lighter, which is this right here. This is for headlights. This tractor doesn't have headlights, but it has the switch for whatever reason. You could get them with headlights or without headlights. I made this headlight bezel, so I put no headlights because it seems kind of common that you see them with headlights instead of without. Unless people steal the headlight bezels out of them. I think that covered everything. Oh, also on the older transmissions, you can see there is lug bolts, as well as under here would be a nut that holds. The older transmissions had disc brakes. I don't know how well you guys can see it. It's a disc brake, where on the later transmissions it was a drum brake. I'll show you guys that here in a minute. So yeah, I think that is it for 1969. 1970 was the exact same as 69, all except for they introduced the coil ignition instead of the magneto ignition. 68 was electronic ignition. 69 was magneto ignition. 70 was electronic ignition with the coil, points, and condenser. In 1971, John Deere introduced they switched from the Peerless differential with the Sunstrand 15 to the Dana rear end. I don't know what number the Dana rear end is. I just know it's a Dana rear end. with the Sunstrand 15U. One easy way to spot if you have a newer or an older 140 is right there. That is the transmission disengage for the newer 140. 1971 through 1974 had that. 1968 through 1970 had that style of the neutral right there. That was where you disengage your transmission. This is the Sunstrand 15 with the Peerless rear end. And this has the Dana rear end with the Sunstrand 15U, like I said before. Same front end, same engine, as well as in 68 and 69. This right here disengages your transmission, as you can see. H3 still. Everything about the tractor is just about the exact same, all except for the rear end. This is the style of rear end the newer ones had in 1971 through 1974. They had a bolt right there in the middle instead of a nut. And they also used lug nuts. As you guys can see, they got rid of the bolts. And this has the drum brakes instead of the disc brakes. Steering brake still, as you can see right there is where you drive the transmission or the tractor, throttle, choke, PTO, cigarette lighter, and light switch again. Right there is your hydrostatic disengage. You could also get, I believe this was in 1968 as well, but in 1968 you could get rear hydraulics. Your rear hydraulic ports would go right here. This was removed for if you had a rear PTO, which would bolt right here, and then it would come up in a rear PTO. Two pulleys would come out, and that'd be your rear PTO, which would go back to the transmission, the hydro pump. I don't know if you guys can see that. There'd be a shaft that comes back, a bracket that bolts here that has two pulleys on it, and that would drive a tiller or any other rear attachment you would get that needed a rear PTO, as well as that model had it. That transmission, I believe, is a little bit different, or the rear PTO for that tractor might be a little bit different. I think that one, if I'm correct, has a key in the back of the hydrostatic pump, where this one doesn't. I believe it has a roll pin. Again, I can't see it too well. I'd have to look. And I would have to verify that one in the editor. If you don't see me edit a caption in, then I'm right. Other than that, everything in the 70 or 1968 through 1970 140 was the same, all except for the engine options, like I said. And then in 1971, they switched from the Peerless rear end over to the Dana rear end with the Sunstrand 15U. In 1972, this went from 1972 through 1974. They kept the Dana rear end with the Sunstrand 15U pump, and they switched to 1-inch spindles. This is a 1-inch spindle right here. This is what you would see if you have a 1-inch spindle on your 140. These are 3/4, as you guys can see. They have a nut, a castle nut that holds the front wheel on underneath of that dust cap. 1972, that, as far as I'm aware, is the only thing they changed. I think they also put a different decal right here, and no, none of my others have it. They switched the decal right here. This is still the choke, that's still the throttle. The choke only goes up to here on the 1972 through 1974 years. They also got rid of the PTO light, which is right here. They got rid of that in either I think it was 73 or 74 they got rid of that light. But 1972, as far as I'm aware, the only change was to the front spindle. They made it 1-inch spindle instead of 1/4 inch. 1973 and 1974, I believe in either 1973 or 74, it might have been 72 even. This right here which would stop the transmission from spinning with the engine spinning and would put this in neutral. They discontinued that in either 72, 73, or 74. When you push this pedal on one of the newer tractors, all it would do is bring this to neutral. The rear end would still spin, which if your tractor creeped, it would creep. The nice thing about having the disengage on a 140 is with the disengage activated, you can have a front attachment going on the tractor like a generator, and your engine could be running without putting extra wear on the rear end. Such as, because if that's going to sit there and spin, and unfortunately these 140s do creep. So it's going to creep away while it's sitting there running that generator, powering your house, and you're inside the house and you don't know it's creeping away slowly. So yeah. Also, in 1968 and 1969, the engines were green. In 1970, 71, 72, 73, and 74, the engines were black. As you can see, this had a black engine. This would have had a black engine as well. The newer, older ones would have had a green engine, 69 and 68. I don't have a 69 or 68 to have an engine, so I can't show you that. They changed that because in 1969, they introduced the patios. The patio engines were white, and they decided to go away with that because they wanted to be able to use the patio engines in the non-patio engines or the non-patio engines in the patios. So if they just left all the engines black and threw them into the tractors, they would be fine, and they wouldn't have to repaint an engine. So there you go. That's why they did that. And also the 68s had a green grill, and the 69s had a black grill like that. 68 is the only year I'm aware of that had a green grill. 69 might have as well. I think early 69 had that also. But again, I'm not quite sure on that one. So yeah, that is pretty much the overview on the tractors. In 1970, John Deere introduced the 120, which was basically the exact same thing as the 140. All except for no brake pedals right here. These two brake pedals didn't exist. Also the 120s, even in 1970, the 120s each year, both years 70 and 71 had the Sunstrand 15U pump with the Dana rear end. They didn't have a Peerless. And I think both years of the 120 they had the 3/4 inch spindle, but I'm not sure on that one. On the 120s, this right here was the brake pedal, as well as it disconnected the engine from the transmission. The 120 was basically the exact same thing as the 140, all except for it was only H1. You didn't get an H3 option, as well as you didn't have the steering brakes with the 120. All you had was the one brake pedal, as well as the disengage, which is nice with the 120s because you could lock the brake pedal down, or you could lock the clutch down, not have the engine spin, and you could run a generator or whatever off the front of the engine, where with the 140s, you can't lock down the clutch pedal. You can only lock down the two brake pedals. But yeah, I think that's pretty much everything. I think that covers the 140s pretty well, and as well as the 120s. But the 120s had the newer style rear end, like I showed you guys, with the lug nuts and the bolt that holds the drum brakes on, where these ones have the disc brakes with the nut that holds the disc on to the rear transmission and the lug bolts. I do have a newer transmission out of a tractor, as well as an older transmission out of a tractor. I have both of them back here. I got to move a few things to get to them. I should have pulled it out, but oh well. It might be buried underneath this table. Oh, damn it, it is. Hold on a second. Let me turn the light on my phone. Going down. That right there, that rear end is out of a 300 series. That is why the rear plate is black, as well as it has a nut right there instead of a bolt. So ignore that. This is out of a 300 series, but this is the exact same rear end as what the 140 would have. As you can see right there is your Sunstrand 15U, and right there is the Dana pumpkin differential, whatever you want to call it. Right there is the PTO shaft. That is for the back of the engine. That goes to your rear PTO. That is also the Sunstrand pump. There was a fan on the back of the Sunstrand 15Us. I think in the older 140s with the Peerless rear end, the fan was in the drive shaft. I believe that was the case, but on these ones there was a fan on the back of the transmission. That is basically the same rear end as what is in my 140, all except for this is out of a 300 series. The only difference from this compared to the 140 is the 300 series didn't have the dipstick that went down into the transmission fluid for whatever reason. I don't know why. But that is the, get out of my way. That is the pump, as you can see. And we'll go over there and I will show you guys the older style rear end. That's also the drum brakes right there, I forgot to mention. Here is a 1969 140. This is the older style transmission. This is the Sunstrand 15 with the Peerless. This is not the 15U, this is just the 15. As you can see right there is the Peerless rear end. Right there, that goes to the rear end right there. There's your disc brake. As you guys can see, that is your disc brake for the rear end. This had disc brakes instead of drum brakes, and also right there is the fan that cools the rear end, where on the newer ones it mounted right there. And yes, this does have a key slot, as you can see, where the newer ones have a roll pin that holds the rear PTO and the fan to the shaft. So yeah, I knew something about them was different. I just couldn't remember what. So there you go. That is an older 140 transmission, and the other one I showed you is a newer 140 transmission. So guys, I want to thank all you for watching. I really hope you enjoyed the video. I can't really think of anything else to cover at the moment about the 140s. All except for what I forgot to mention is 1972 through 1974, they had 23 10 50 12 rear tires, where the earlier 140s standard, but you could get them also with the old, newer, bigger tires. Standard for the older ones, though, would be 23 8 50 12s, where the rear end, where the newer 140s came standard with 23 10 50 12s. Personal preference, I think the older square fenders look better with the narrower rims or narrower tires instead of the wider tires on them. 71 still, it would have had the 23 8 50 12s, as well as 72 would have had the 1050s. Those are the 850s right there, as you can see, that are on my round fender, as well as on my 208. The 208 came standard with the 850s. So yeah, guys, I want to thank you all for watching today's video. I hope this video taught you something. I hope this video was more informative than the other video I made on the 140s a few years ago. Like I said before, 140s as well as 120s. Like I said before, I really didn't know a whole lot at that time. I was just going off of what was on my head, what I kind of had an idea about at that point in time. But again, I couldn't really stand behind what I was saying. And I watched that video today and I was kind of embarrassed about it. I watched it and I thought, wow, I really didn't know what I was talking about. So I jumped on and I thought, I'm going to make another video, and hopefully this video will help somebody and you guys will learn something from it. So yeah, I want to thank all you for watching. Please remember to like, comment, subscribe, and I will see all of you in my next video. I think that is going to be it. I will see you all in the next video. Take care. Bye. One thing that I forgot to mention about the older 140s versus the newer 140s is right here. That is a piece of all thread. This is 9/16 on 1968 through 1970 140s. On the 1971 all the way through 1974, it was a piece of 5/8 all thread. As you can see, it's got a bigger bolt on it. It's either 5/8 or 3/4. I can't remember which one. but it's one of those two. And then this one up here was 9/16. I forgot to mention that to you guys. And also the amp meter moved. No, it didn't, never mind. A little bit more information I kind of just thought about just now, actually, as I was putting stuff away. On the 69 140s, 69 square fenders, 69 anything, they had flat center rims instead of the normal rims that you guys would see. My patio actually has a set of the 69 rims. As you can see right there, it has the flat center rims. They put those on, they were 23 1050 12s. I don't know if they made a 23 850 set or not. They made those because the company that made the traditional rims that John Deere used went on strike. John Deere and a few other companies used these rims. They went on strike. So them, as well as other people, had to find different rims to use. I think it was only John Deere that used those rims, but again, I'm not too sure. As well as on the 120s, they were kind of the baseline model of the 140. They ended up discontinuing the 120 in 1971. I forgot to mention, by the way, the 120 had a 12-horse Kohler K301, where the 140 had the 14-horse, like I said before. This was the 140 engine. The 120 engine looked the same, all except for, like I said, it was a 12-horse. But as you can see, that's what the 140 engine would look like. That doesn't have an engine, so therefore it doesn't have one. So yeah, I hope you guys learned something from this video. As I said before, I just had to throw these mental notes in because I kind of forgot about them, and I was just putting this stuff away. And I thought about it, and I thought, you know, I should probably include that in the video. So yeah, I think that I have pretty much covered everything now that I needed to cover. So yeah. And I don't remember if the 120 had the newer style front end or not. They discontinued the 120 in 1971. And then after they discontinued the 120, they made the upgrades to the 140. In 1972, as I said before. However, in 1971, they had already introduced the newer style transmission. And yes, I know someone's going to comment about the oil. That the seal, one of the seals on this engine's out. That has actually been like that for a while. That's not new. The engine still has some oil left in it, but once it started leaking out that seal, it just kind of picked up in a few other places. So, yeah, oh well, I got to put new seals in it. All right, that's it. Leave me a comment down below if you guys are interested in seeing a video on the 300 series, talking about all the 300 series and differences between each of them. If you are, let me know and maybe I'll make one. I don't exactly have a whole lot of 300 series right now, but maybe sometime here in the future, I'll have some more 300 series that I can film on. And if you guys are interested in that, I'll make a video for all of you about all the differences from all the 300 series. Maybe we'll talk about the 300. What? I said, maybe we'll talk about the 316 Onins, the 318, 320, 322, 330, and 332. But all the 300 series models were the 300, 312, 314, 316, 316K, 316 Onin, 318, 320, 322, 330, and 332. If you're interested in that video, let me know, and maybe I will throw it together here in the near future. I am kind of looking around for more 300 series. I only have 2 at the moment. I thought about getting all the 300 series, but I'm kind of out of that window now. I currently have almost all the 200 series except for a 200. And once I get that, I'd have all the 200 series. Let me know if that's something that interests any of you guys, and maybe I'll pitch in a little bit more and look for more 300 series. And maybe I'll make a video on that. I'm also looking for a 120 I just kind of want one. I'm not really in a rush. If one was to pop up dirt cheap, you know, I'd go after it, but I'm not really looking at the moment. I'm just kind of browsing. So if anybody out there has a 120 they're wanting to get rid of, leave me a comment down below. And just if you follow me on Facebook, send me a message on Facebook with some pictures. We'll get a price worked out, and we'll also get something worked out on it. I'm also looking for an all original, I do not care what condition the paint is, yellow patio. I have a blue patio, I have a red patio, and an orange patio. I'm missing the yellow. So if anybody out there has any of those, leave me a comment, or like I said, tag me on Facebook, send me a message on Facebook, and we'll talk about it. I'm also at the moment, I'm kind of browsing around for a 300 and a 314. If I get the 300 and 314, I'll have the closed frame free 300 series. Then all I need is the open frame 300 series. So yeah, thank you guys for watching. Like, comment, subscribe. I will see you guys in the next video. I think this is going to be it for today. Let me know. Well, I actually think I did okay with the 300 or the 100 and 200 series videos I made. But if you guys think I need to redo them now, since I know a little bit more about what I'm talking about, leave me a comment and maybe we will do that. So yeah, thank you guys for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, and I will see all of you in the next video. Take care. Another difference between the 120s and 140s is on the back of the 140s fender pan, they have the little notch cut out for the rear PTO as well as the rear hydraulic ports. The 120s did not have that. They actually just had a flat back. There was no cutouts in the back for anything. Also, 68 through 70, they had the tabs on the grill that held the grill into the uprights. There was a little tab down there, and two things up here that you could push in, and there were little slides down there that it would set in. I forgot to mention that. And then 71 through 74, I believe, they had the grill that you folded and you just inserted into the thing, which is what that tractor has. And this one has the push tab one. This is 70 and that's a 71. So yeah, I figured I'd let you guys know about that one.